They've spent centuries writing the rules. Master Masons didn't just build the game. They designed the board, carved the tokens, then rigged the outcomes to make sure no one walks free. Every initiation is a leash disguised as elevation. Every symbol is a gate. Every level, a ceiling with better lighting. You were never supposed to see that. You were supposed to chase rank, chase wisdom, kiss the ring, and never question where the ring came from. But you didn't follow the map. You erased it, and now they don't sleep. They've seen enemies before, protesters, hackers, dissidents, but all those could be handled because they were predictable. You weren't born in their blueprint. You emerged from beneath it. You didn't knock on their door. You appeared in their sanctum. No key, no trace, just presence. And that's what's tearing the lodges apart. Because what you are, it shouldn't be possible. You're not a broken initiate. You're not a defector. You're a living contradiction, a being they can't place. No record, no allegiance. But every move you make sends ripples through chambers that were supposedly sealed for eternity. They watch you the way a wolf watches a fire, confused by something it doesn't understand, terrified by something it can't fight. They try to calculate how you got here, who trained you, what taught you. But the answer is worse than anything they imagined. Nothing did. You woke up without them. You see, the Master Masons have worked hard to make sure knowledge only rises through obedience. Every degree is chained to a price. Every secret bought through submission. That's how they maintain control. Not with force, but with the illusion of earned access. You weren't supposed to bypass that. But you did. You didn't crawl your way to their light. You brought your own. And now their symbols don't shine the way they used to. They built towers out of half-truths and called them enlightenment. But you didn't climb their tower. You walked right past it, unmoved, unimpressed, and untouched. You spoke truths that weren't in their scrolls. You moved in ways that weren't taught. And the worst part, their highest seats recognized it instantly. Not with applause, but with fear. Because if someone like you exists, then everything they built is permeable. If you found your way in, others will too. Now their temples aren't sacred. They're leaking. Their oaths don't echo. Their rituals feel hollow. Because in the back of every mind, even the oldest among them, the question burns. How did he get in? They've gone through the archives, checked the logs, cross-referenced lineages. Nothing. You are off script. And that breaks the spell. Because if you didn't need the path, maybe the path was a cage all along. The panic spreads quietly. Lodges once known for their silence now churn with closed-door meetings. Master Masons from opposing rites whisper in private. They don't talk about the outer world. They talk about you. They don't strategize around politics. They strategize around your presence. Because you didn't just slip past their defenses, you invalidated them. Your knowledge doesn't come from their schools. Your understanding doesn't follow their codes. You're not a threat to their throne. You're a reminder that their throne isn't real. You've made them remember something they've tried to bury. That there was once a current of power that didn't need ritual. A raw knowing. A cellular awareness. One that couldn't be contained, sold, or inherited. One that existed long before the temples were carved and the robes were sewn. And that's what you walk in. That's what they feel when you stand in the room. Not rebellion, not challenge, memory. They tell themselves you're a myth, that your type doesn't exist. But the lie doesn't hold. Not when their apprentices ask questions they were never supposed to ask. Not when even seasoned elders start noticing cracks in the walls that never cracked before. You don't fight their structure. You don't shout. You don't resist. You exist. And that's the most violent thing of all. Because you prove that everything they require, titles, steps, chains, are meaningless to something real. Their magic doesn't fail because it's weak. It fails because it was designed for the asleep, not the awake. It was made to bend men who seek, not those who remember. Their symbols fall flat in your presence because you don't decode them. You stare through them. You don't resist the spell. You make it irrelevant. You don't carry protection. You are the interruption, not to their rights, but to their belief that they were ever necessary. This is why their fear runs deep. You don't want power. You don't demand submission. You don't ask for anything. You move with calm, purpose, precision. You speak in fragments that hit harder than their longest sermons. You don't posture. You don't perform. You just are. And the longer you exist, the more their structure disintegrates. Because the structure was only ever strong in the absence of something like you. They've tried to dismiss you, call you unstable, claim you're deluded. But the stairs don't lie. Behind the closed doors, they don't laugh. They debate. They panic. They pray to gods they don't believe in that what you represent never catches fire. Because if one like you can appear without initiation, then maybe initiation is just a cage made of pageantry and fear. You didn't ask to be let in. You didn't want their title. You didn't seek their wisdom. You are the thing their wisdom imitates. You move with the gravity of a forgotten lineage, one they've tried to sanitize and reshape into obedience. And you carry it without effort, without flair, without explanation. You are the riddle that wasn't supposed to show up. Now the Master Masons lie awake, flipping through books that once gave them comfort, only to find the pages feel empty. Their chants don't hit the same. Their chambers don't feel sealed. They've lit their candles, performed the rites, and still you remain unmoved, unmarked, unshaken. Because their magic was never meant to stop something that wasn't created by them in the first place. They fear the truth behind your existence more than the existence itself. That what you are doesn't need them. That what you know doesn't come from them. That what you carry is not a deviation from their path, but the origin they abandoned. And if more begin to see that, if more begin to question, the lodges fall, the illusion dies, and the throne sits empty, not from conquest, but from irrelevance. This is why they fear you. Because you don't want their crown. You don't even look at it. You're too busy staring at the source. And that kind of gaze, it shatters everything built on lies. They can't defend against you because they don't understand you. And they don't understand you because you didn't come to learn. You came because you never forgot. They've mapped everything, but they never mapped you. They've guarded every door, but you walked through the wall. They've encoded every word, but you speak the silence between them. And now, their entire infrastructure shakes, not because you attacked it, but because you stood there breathing. What they feel in you is not rebellion. It's not war. It's return. The return of a presence they tried to replace. The return of knowledge that doesn't kneel. The return of a being who walks without chains and sees every lock as fiction. They can keep their symbols. They can protect their lodges. They can whisper in the dark all they want, but it won't change the truth. You are already inside, and what they feared the most was never the battle. It was the moment they realized that nothing they do now. So now behind vaulted doors and coded chants, they don't speak your name. they avoid it. Because to say it is to admit their whole temple leaks. Not from assault, but from exposure. What keeps them shaking isn't what you'll do next, but what you've already undone by simply being. Their walls, their ranks, their sacred geometries, none of it matters anymore. Because the one truth they carved out of every scripture now stares back through your eyes. Not asking for a seat, not asking for a crown, just standing there, unblinking, immovable. And they're realizing they haven't just lost control, they've lost the illusion that they ever had it. And now, the fractures are showing in places they never thought could break. Grand lodges whisper against each other. High-ranking masons cancel ceremonies with no explanation. Their temples still stand, but what's missing is the certainty that once guarded them like invisible walls. You turned the ritual into noise. You turned their chambers into echoes. You walked in without knocking, and something ancient inside those walls responded. Not with rejection, with recognition. And that's what burns them the most. Because your presence doesn't defy their secrets. It precedes them. They can't write you off as coincidence, not when the youngest apprentice flinches mid-initiation, saying he saw someone standing behind the veil. Not when dreams start repeating across continents. Not when symbols they've used for control start trembling in their hands. You weren't supposed to be seen. You weren't supposed to exist. And now that you do, the weight of everything they've hidden begins to collapse under its own architecture. Because here's what they built: a world of rituals, layers of meaning, names only whispered in specific order, movements timed with moon cycles, and a doctrine so dense most never question it. But you showed up already knowing what their grand masters still fumble to interpret. You move like someone who's not waiting for light, but remembering the source before they tried to cage it. Their candles flicker when you speak, not from wind, but from irrelevance. Because what you carry doesn't require permission, doesn't seek translation. It simply is. They thought they had time, generations to tighten the net, layers to bury the origin. But now, time bends awkwardly around you. You know things they haven't taught. You see patterns they never intended anyone to see. And worst of all, you make others start to remember too. That's the crisis, not your strength, but your influence. You're not recruiting, you're not convincing, you're just existing, and it's triggering collapse. Master Masons across continents don't talk openly anymore. They meet in twos, in hushed corners of once glorious temples, not to plan the future, but to discuss the threat. They call you a disturbance, a rupture, an infection, but none of those terms fit, because infection implies damage. You're not damaging their world. You're exposing that it was already hollow. Their panic isn't about what you'll do. It's about what you've already made visible, and now no one can unsee it. You see, their magic was always designed for the slumbering. Symbols meant to bind the unconscious mind. Words meant to manipulate the unaware. It wasn't power, it was programming. But when you walked in, it didn't work. Because you didn't come asleep. You weren't seeking admission. You were there to watch them squirm in the presence of something they couldn't decode. They tried the chants. They tried the old gestures, but nothing moved you. Because none of it was real to you. And without belief, their entire house folds in on itself. It's not the outsiders that scare them. It's the unshakable. The ones who walk in with no need for names, who look past the symbols like they're children's toys, who don't just question their traditions, but make them feel small forever thinking they were sacred. That's you. You are what they never built a ritual to defend against. The one being whose very presence makes their altars feel like cardboard, whose words ripple through generations of conditioning like a crack through ancient stone. They're trying to rewrite things now, shift meanings, adjust dogma. But they're scrambling, because for every page they modify, 10 more fall apart. You've triggered something deeper than rebellion. You've cut into their core. The illusion of control was always dependent on one thing: secrecy. But you don't want their secrets. You never needed them. You came carrying the source they tried to impersonate, and now their deepest fear is materializing in real time. That someone has returned who remembers the truth without ever being taught. And the signs are everywhere. The lodges are quieter now, their meetings shorter, their confidence drained. When they speak, their voices shake, but not from age, from proximity, from the unrelenting pressure of knowing someone has entered the space they called protected and walked through it untouched. Your footsteps alone have left marks they can't scrub clean. And those who try? They walk away different, rattled, shaken, changed. You don't carry titles. You don't use their terms. You never ask to be included. And yet, they watch you like an uninvited prophecy. One that doesn't shout, doesn't threaten, doesn't demand. You simply exist. And that's more violent than any war they ever prepared for. Because you remind them of what they buried. That power doesn't come from hierarchy. It comes from awareness. From origin, from a current that was never meant to be owned. Their archives mention figures like you, hidden behind metaphors and warnings. They called them the forgotten flame, the unscripted presence, the stone before the builders, and every generation feared one would return, not with destruction, but with indifference. That's what haunts them. You're not trying to dismantle their empire. You're showing it never needed to exist. You're not attacking their traditions. You're reminding them how artificial they feel in the presence of something authentic. And now, the panic spreads further. Younger members question things they were told never to ask. Senior members retire early, refusing to explain why. Entire rituals are rewritten overnight to account for energetic disruptions they won't name out loud. But behind closed doors, they know the cause. It's not chaos. It's not opposition. It's you. The anomaly who isn't anomalous but original. The being who walks in remembrance, not rebellion. They tried to contain you by silence, tried to erase your effect by refusing to name you. But the damage is already done. Every Grand Master who's encountered you now moves differently. Every one of them carries that stare, the one that's seen something that doesn't belong. But the truth is, you do belong. It's they who built a castle on stolen ground. And now that the soil remembers you, the foundation shudders. This was never about ceremony, never about rites. It was about amnesia, a collective, carefully structured amnesia they've guarded for lifetimes. And you are the memory they couldn't erase, the pattern that slipped through centuries of filters, the presence they can't place and can't escape. You don't fight them. You dissolve them, not with violence, with presence, with the unbearable reminder that everything they worship was stolen from a truth they were never worthy of. And now they try one last thing: influence. They offer recognition. They hint at alliance. Some even try respect. But it's all desperation, because deep down, they know. You don't want to join them. You don't want to lead them. You don't even see them. And that's the deepest wound. To be invisible to someone who sees through everything. to be bypassed by the very force they spent generations preparing to manipulate. You broke the contract without even signing it. They tried to make themselves immortal through secrecy, but your very existence is a rupture, not to their lives, but to their myth. You are what they called impossible. You are what they swore could never happen again. And yet, you're here, calm, awake, immune. And now, their greatest spell, control through fear, falls flat in your presence. Because you're not afraid, you never were. This is the reckoning they never expected. Not a war, not an uprising, just you, existing, and in your existence, collapsing a story that never deserved to be told in the first place. The problem isn't that you shattered their illusion. The problem is that you didn't even aim at it. You didn't resist their power, you ignored it. You didn't debate their dogma, you made it irrelevant. You didn't dismantle their temples. You walked through them like they were abandoned relics of a civilization that never mattered. And that's what finishes them. Not a hammer, not a rebellion, but the weight of being unseen by something far beyond their reach. Their structure was always designed to maintain the illusion of invincibility, but every illusion rots in the face of presence. And your presence. It drags their foundations into the open. It unearths what they buried beneath years of ceremonial layering. That everything they feared, the wild, the unscripted, the uninitiated, was always stronger than their control. And now, all across the inner sanctums of the Masonic grid, they whisper the same thing. We've been breached, not by violence, not by exposure, but by something worse, irrelevance. Their rituals no longer cast shadows. Their words no longer echo. Their magic no longer works. Because magic only bends the mind that still believes. You aren't there to destroy. That would imply they were ever a real threat to begin with. You're there to remind them they were just placeholders. A temporary scaffold over truths that never needed their permission. And now, the scaffolding trembles, not because you pushed it, but because the winds you carry were never meant to be contained in brick and parchment. Their spells depended on secrecy, but you never needed secrecy. You are the raw material, the original current, the one presence that can't be symbolized, contained, or defined, because everything they use to define is just a shadow of what you carry in your breath. They always feared what couldn't be tracked, but now they fear what can't be understood. You don't use their language, but you speak with gravity. You don't participate in their customs, but your silence overrides their hymns. You don't expose them, but you stand in a way that makes their masks fall off without a word. And the panic isn't visible to the world, but it's spreading like blood beneath polished marble. Lodges once flooded with loyal men now host empty chairs and closed-door whispers. Their oldest members tremble in meetings, not because of age, but because they've realized what you represent. You are not part of the system, you are the end of it. They tried to outlast truth with tradition, but truth never forgets. And now, truth walks again in your form. Your movements aren't loud, but they carry the final sound of everything artificial. You don't even raise your voice, yet somehow, the moment you arrive, they speak less. Because deep down, they know. When something real enters the room, fiction collapses without protest. That's why they fear you, because you're not threatening them. You're undoing them by standing still, because your stillness makes their entire legacy look like a child's trick. They've failed before, but always in silence. This time, the failure is loud, because it's unignorable. The younger ranks aren't blind anymore. They're watching their masters unravel. They're watching the old ones question symbols they once worshipped. The new blood doesn't crave elevation, it craves truth. And you are the signal. Not because you shouted, but because you didn't need to. You arrived already knowing. That breaks the cycle. That makes the ritual look like a costume party played in slow motion. They never considered this ending. They wrote scripts for betrayal, for exposure, for rebellion, but not for return. They planned against threats with logic. But you didn't come with logic. You came with memory, cellular, pre-structure, pre-control, the kind of memory that doesn't belong to one life, but to the origin point they tried to erase with every tool they ever created. You don't wear a robe, but you walk like you've sat in chambers older than history. You don't need their approval, because you walked before they learned how to give it. So now they attempt reconstruction, not of buildings, of meaning. They're rewriting documents, adjusting ceremonies, rebranding fear as wisdom. But it's too late. You exposed the soft center, the rotten core, the mirror they avoided. And what you showed wasn't corruption. It was emptiness. There's nothing behind the curtain except men who forgot why they stood there in the first place. And now they look at you and realize the light they pretended to guard is standing before them. And it never needed guards. The Masonic lodges don't fear collapse. They've planned for that. What they fear now is that collapse doesn't matter, that people have already seen behind the veil, that their initiates are walking away, not because of threat, but because of disinterest. Because your presence flipped the equation. You made their secrets feel cheap. Their authority feel borrowed. Their hierarchy feel like theater. And once the performance is seen for what it is, no one applauds. They just stop watching. What they feel is erosion, not sudden, not dramatic, but fatal. Because what you've done is installed doubt in the one place they never expected, their inner circle. The ones who memorized every rite, the ones who bled for advancement, the ones who believed. Even they are questioning because they've seen you. And now every time they speak a line they memorized, they hear how hollow it sounds next to your presence. You didn't come to war. You came to exist. And your existence is the death of the illusion. They'll never speak it publicly, never write it in the books, but among themselves, in the deepest rooms, where even the symbols are stripped bare. They've said it now. We lost it. Not power, not control, but meaning. They lost the meaning. Because if someone like you can walk among them with zero allegiance, zero training, and still speak with more weight than their grand masters, then the whole ladder collapses. If the top isn't real, then the climb was a lie. They built a structure out of symbols, out of passwords, out of obedience, and you shattered all three without lifting a finger. Because you're not the outsider, you're the proof that there was something before the lodge. And now they're left standing inside cathedrals of marble, realizing the floor they worship never led anywhere, that the staircase to power ends in a mirror. And the worst part? You're not even looking in that mirror. You're looking through it at something else, at where it all began. So what now? They will try to contain the narrative, rewrite the myth. They'll name you a heretic, a mistake, an error in the code. But it won't stick, because you didn't enter the story. They entered yours. And what you bring isn't legend. It's the original print beneath all the edits. They dressed control as wisdom. You peeled it back with a glance. They chained access with rules. You ignored them. And now, their house doesn't just feel small. It feels borrowed. Your footsteps echo in places they swore were untraceable. Not because you hunted them, but because you walked where they never expected anyone would remember to walk again. You didn't break in. You didn't sneak past. You just showed up. And the world shifted. The rooms got quieter. The breath got heavier. The rank became meaningless. Because truth has a posture, and you carry it. There will be no headlines, no collapse, no smoke, just absence. People leaving the temples, people looking away, people forgetting the charm. Because what you've activated in the world can't be undone. It's not revolution, it's realization. And that's more permanent than any riot. They could have prepared for fire. They could have prepared for war. But how do you defend against someone who simply woke up first? You are not the ending of their age. You are the memory it tried to erase. You are not the collapse. You are the return, not to chaos, but to clarity, not to rebellion, but to truth before they gave it a dress code. They will speak of you without saying your name. They will adjust their plans while pretending you don't exist. They will look over their shoulders every time a stranger enters the room, hoping it's not another one like you. But it won't matter, because by then, it's already begun. The unraveling, the exposure, the quiet extinction of everything built on borrowed light. Not through battle, not through defiance, just through presence, through the unbearable awareness that their highest walls, their deepest codes, their oldest spells, mean nothing in front of what you really are.